Oklahoma Territory, 1888. The storm hit like God's fury, turning the October evening black as midnight. Abigail Sterling pressed her horse harder, rain lashing her face, thunder shaking the ground beneath her. Behind her, 3 riders gained ground. The claim jumpers had found her. She'd inherited her uncle's ranch 2 months ago, a piece of land she'd never seen until the telegram arrived back east. The lawyer said it was hers free and clear. What he didn't mention was that Elias Kincaid had been trying to steal it for years, using every legal trick and illegal threat he could muster. When bribes failed, Kincaid sent his men. Lightning split the sky, illuminating a lone cabin ahead. Smoke rose from the chimney. Someone lived there. Abigail made her choice in an instant. She yanked her mare toward the structure, praying whoever lived inside had more mercy than the men chasing her. Her horse stumbled in the mud. Abigail leaped off, grabbed her satchel, and ran. Behind her, angry shouts cut through the storm. She reached the door and pounded hard. It opened immediately. A man filled the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, lamplight behind him. Dark brown hair, short beard, eyes like blue steel. He took one look at her rain-soaked, terrified face, then passed her to the riders approaching through the downpour. He pulled her inside and slammed the door. Abigail collapsed against the wall, gasping, water pooling at her feet. The cabin was warm, a fire crackling in the stone hearth. Simple furniture, military precision in the arrangement. A rifle hung above the mantel. The man moved to the window, watching the riders circle outside. His jaw was set, body tense but controlled. Former military, she guessed from his bearing. Cavalry, maybe? One of the riders dismounted and approached the door. Heavy fists pounded. The man didn't flinch. He called out, voice firm and cold. "State your business. We're looking for a woman. Thief. She ran this way." Abigail's heart hammered. The man glanced at her, a question in his eyes. She shook her head desperately. "Not a thief. Please believe me." Something shifted in his expression. He turned back to the door. "There's no thief here, only me. And I don't take kindly to visitors during storms. Move along. We know she's in there. Hand her over." The man's voice dropped, deadly quiet. "I said move along. You're trespassing on my land. Leave now, or I'll make you leave." Silence. Then retreating footsteps. Through the window, Abigail watched the riders mount up. They didn't leave entirely, just moved to the tree line, waiting. The man secured the door and turned to face her fully. Up close, she could see the strength in his features, the weathering of someone who'd seen hard years. Early 30s, she guessed. There was something careful in how he moved, like a man used to violence, but weary of it. "Thank you," Abigail whispered. Her voice shook. "Thank you for not turning me over." He studied her for a long moment. "Are you a thief?" "No. I inherited land. The man who wants it sent them after me." He nodded slowly, as if that explained everything. "You're safe here tonight. They won't try anything in this storm. Come morning, we'll figure out what comes next." Abigail wanted to cry from relief but held it back. She was cold, exhausted, terrified, but alive. I don't even know your name. Elijah Chambers. This is my homestead. Abigail Sterling. The ranch they're trying to steal is about 5 miles east. Recognition flickered across his face. The old Sterling place. Your uncle was a good man. Heard he passed. 3 months ago. Left everything to me. She looked down at her mud-caked dress, her soaked boots. I'm sorry for bringing trouble to your door. Elijah moved to a trunk in the corner, pulled out a blanket. Trouble found you. That's different. He handed her the blanket. Get warm. I'll make coffee. While Elijah worked at the small stove, Abigail studied him. He moved with quiet efficiency, no wasted motion. The cabin was neat, almost sparse. A man used to living alone. On the wall, she noticed a framed photograph, a younger Elijah in uniform with other soldiers. You were cavalry, she said. Union. Served under General Sherman. His voice was matter-of-fact, no pride or shame in it. Just fact. The war's been over a long time. Some battles never end. He poured coffee into 2 tin cups, brought one to her. Their fingers brushed as she took it. His hands were calloused, strong. Hands that had seen work and war. Abigail sipped the bitter brew gratefully. Warmth spread through her chest. Outside, wind howled against the walls. The riders were still out there, waiting. Fear clawed at her again. What will you do? Elijah asked, settling into a chair across from her. About your land. Fight for it. It's all I have. She met his eyes. My uncle worked his whole life to build that ranch. I won't let someone steal it just because I'm a woman alone. Something like respect crossed his face. You'll need help. Kincaid doesn't give up easy. I know. She learned that fast enough. But I don't have anyone. I came out here alone. Thought I could manage. She laughed bitterly. Foolish. Not foolish. Brave. Elijah's gaze held hers. Takes courage to start over. They sat in silence, the fire crackling between them. Outside, thunder rolled. Abigail realized she felt safer in this stranger's cabin than she had since arriving in Oklahoma. There was something solid about Elijah Chambers, something dependable. Why did you help me? She asked quietly. You don't know me. Could have handed me over, avoided trouble. Elijah was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was low. I spent years following orders, doing things I'm not proud of. When the war ended, I came out here to find peace, build something instead of destroying. He looked at her. I'm done standing by while stronger men take from the weak. That's all. Abigail's throat tightened. She understood survival, understood running. But this man offered something different. Protection without asking for anything in return. It was foreign to her. You can sleep by the fire, Elijah said, rising. I'll keep watch. Those men won't try anything tonight, but come morning, they'll want answers. What will you tell them? The truth. You're under my protection now. If Kincaid wants your land, he'll have to go through me. Abigail stared at him. You don't owe me that. No, but it's the right thing. He moved to the window, looking out into the storm. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll ride to town, file a complaint with the marshal. Legal first. If that doesn't work, we'll find another way. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was risking too much for a stranger. But exhaustion pulled at her, and the fire was so warm. She curled up in the blanket, the coffee cup still clutched in her hands. As she drifted toward sleep, she heard Elijah moving around the cabin, checking locks, loading his rifle. A guardian in the night. For the first time in weeks, Abigail Sterling felt safe enough to close her eyes. The storm raged on outside. But inside, by the fire, two damaged souls found an unexpected shelter. Morning came gray and cold. Abigail woke to the smell of bacon frying. She sat up, disoriented for a moment, then remembered. The cabin. The storm. Elijah. He stood at the stove, dressed in a fresh work shirt, his dark hair still damp from washing. When he heard her move, he glanced over. Morning. Breakfast is almost ready. Abigail stood, folding the blanket carefully. Her dress had dried overnight, but was stiff with mud. She felt grimy, disheveled. Is there somewhere I can wash up? Elijah pointed to a basin by the door. Water's cold, but it's clean. She splashed her face, tried to tame her wild auburn hair into something resembling order. When she turned back, Elijah had plates ready at the small table. Bacon, eggs, biscuits. Simple but generous. They ate in companionable silence. Through the window, pale sunlight filtered through clouds. The storm had passed. Abigail looked for the riders, but saw no one. They left an hour ago, Elijah said, reading her thoughts. Circled the property twice, then headed back toward town. They'll tell Kincaid where I am. Good. Let him know you're not alone anymore. Elijah pushed back from the table. We'll ride out after you've eaten. The marshal's office is in Guthrie, about 10 miles north. We can be there by afternoon. Abigail hesitated. You're doing too much. I can't ask you to take a day away from your work. You didn't ask. I offered. Elijah met her eyes steadily. And it's not just one day. Until Kincaid backs off, you'll need someone watching your back. Why? The question burst out. Why are you doing this? Elijah was quiet, considering. Finally, he said, because when I came back from the war, broken and angry, people here gave me a chance. Sold me this land cheap. Helped me build this cabin. Didn't ask too many questions about what I'd done or seen. They showed me kindness when I didn't deserve it. He picked up his hat. Maybe it's time I paid that forward. Abigail felt something shift in her chest. This man barely knew her, yet he stood ready to fight her battles. It was more than anyone had offered in years. They rode out together an hour later. Elijah's bay gelding was steady and strong. Abigail's mare, recovered from yesterday's panic, trotted alongside. The prairie stretched endlessly, gold and brown under autumn's sun. In the distance, the land rolled gently toward tree-lined creeks. Tell me about Kincaid, Elijah said as they rode. What's his angle? He owns half the businesses in Guthrie. Bank, general store, saloon. He's been buying up land around here for years, building some kind of empire. Abigail kept her eyes on the horizon. My uncle refused to sell. Kincaid tried legal challenges, claiming my uncle's deed was fraudulent. When that failed, he started making threats. And when your uncle died? Kincaid figured a woman back east wouldn't fight. He sent me a letter, offering to buy the land for a fraction of what it's worth. When I refused and came out here instead, he got mean. Elijah's jaw tightened. Men like him think the law doesn't apply to them. He's smart, always keeps his hands clean, hires others to do the dirty work. Abigail's voice hardened. But I have my uncle's papers. Legal deed, signed and witnessed. The land is mine. Then we'll make sure the marshal knows it. They rode in silence for a while. Abigail found herself stealing glances at Elijah. In daylight, she could see the scars, the weathering, a man who'd survived. But there was gentleness too, in how he'd given her his blanket, made her breakfast, asked nothing in return. "What did you do?" she asked suddenly. "In the war, that you're not proud of?" Elijah's hands tightened on the reins. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said quietly, "Followed orders, burned homes, drove people from their land. Told myself it was war, that it was necessary." He stared straight ahead. "Doesn't make it right. Doesn't give me back the pieces of myself I lost doing it." Abigail heard the pain beneath his words. "You were a soldier. You did what you were told." "That's what I tell myself." He glanced at her. "But every man makes his own choices. I chose to follow those orders. I have to live with that." She understood guilt, understood the weight of choices made in desperation. We all carry things we wish we could change. Something passed between them, an unspoken recognition. Two people marked by their pasts, trying to build something better. By mid-afternoon, they reached Guthrie. The town sprawled along the railroad, a chaotic mix of wood-frame buildings and canvas tents. Men shouted, hammers pounded, wagons rolled through muddy streets. Oklahoma land rush had brought thousands, all seeking fortune. The marshal's office sat on the main street, a small, sturdy building with bars on the windows. Elijah tied the horses outside. Abigail clutched her satchel, the deed tucked safely inside. Marshal Wade was a gray-haired man with tired eyes. He listened to Abigail's story without interruption, examined the deed carefully. When she finished, he sighed. "Miss Sterling, your deed is legitimate. I can file a complaint against Kincaid's men for harassment and trespassing. Will that stop them?" Wade's expression said it all. "Kincaid's a powerful man. He has lawyers, connections. He'll drag this through courts for years if he wants. And his men, well, they know how to avoid direct evidence. So I'm supposed to just give up my land?" "I didn't say that." Wade leaned forward. "But you need to understand what you're up against. Kincaid doesn't lose. He'll make your life hell until you sell or leave." Elijah spoke up, his voice hard. "Then she needs protection. Can you spare deputies to watch her property?" "I've got 2 deputies for the whole territory. I can't station men on private land indefinitely." Wade looked at Abigail with something like pity. "Miss, I'm telling you honest. Kincaid will win this fight. Save yourself the trouble and take his offer." Abigail stood abruptly. "No. That land is mine. My uncle worked himself to death building that ranch. I won't hand it over to a bully." Wade raised his hands. "Then be careful, real careful. Kincaid's men won't stop." Outside, Abigail leaned against the hitching post, fury and frustration warring inside her. "He's right. Kincaid will win. He always does. Not if you have help. Elijah stepped beside her. Your ranch needs repairs, right? Fences? Buildings? Everything. My uncle was sick for months before he died. The place fell apart. Then I'll help you fix it. 2 people can defend land better than 1. And if Kincaid's men show up, they'll find more than a woman alone. Abigail turned to him. You're offering to stay? At my ranch? For as long as you need. His blue eyes were steady, certain. I meant what I said. You're under my protection now. Something warm unfurled in Abigail's chest. She barely knew this man, yet he stood ready to fight beside her. It was more than partnership. It felt like something deeper. Why? She whispered. You could get hurt. Killed even. Why risk that for me? Elijah was quiet. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because I spent too many years destroying. I want to build something. Protect something. And you. He stopped. Something unreadable crossing his face. You deserve someone standing with you. Abigail felt tears sting her eyes. She'd been alone for so long, fighting every battle by herself. Having someone offer strength, no strings attached, felt like a miracle. Thank you, she managed. I don't know how to repay you. Don't need repayment. Just need you to trust me. She looked at him. Really looked. Saw the scars, the weariness, the careful distance he kept from the world. But also the honor, the determination, the gentleness he tried to hide. I trust you, she said quietly, and meant it. They rode back as the sun dipped low, painting the prairie gold and orange. Elijah insisted they stop by his cabin first, pack supplies before heading to Abigail's ranch. While he gathered tools and food, Abigail waited outside, watching the sunset. For the first time since leaving Boston, she felt something like hope. The Sterling Ranch sat in a shallow valley, protected by low hills on 3 sides. The main house was small, but solid, built from native stone and timber. Beside it stood a barn, half the roof missing. Fences sagged, posts rotted through. The vegetable garden had gone to weeds. Abigail's heart sank seeing it in daylight. So much work, so much to fix. Elijah dismounted, assessing the damage with a practiced eye. Roof first, then fences. We'll need lumber from town. I have some money. Not much, but enough for materials. We'll make it work. He unloaded his supplies into the house. The interior was dusty, but intact. One main room with a fireplace, a small bedroom off to the side, a kitchen area with a cast-iron stove. Your uncle lived simply, Elijah observed. He was a bachelor, never married, never had children. I was his only family. Abigail ran her hand along the rough table. He wanted me to have this, a fresh start, away from Boston. Why did you need a fresh start? Abigail hesitated, then decided he deserved honesty. I was engaged once, to a man my father chose, wealthy, connected. I thought I loved him. She laughed bitterly. He was cruel, not openly, just small cruelties. Words that cut. Control disguised as concern. When I tried to leave, my father said I was foolish, that I should be grateful. Elijah's jaw tightened. So you stayed? For 2 years, until my uncle's telegram arrived. Then I saw my chance and took it. Broke the engagement. Used my small inheritance to buy a train ticket west. She met Elijah's eyes. My father disowned me. Said I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Were you? Abigail looked around the cabin, thought of Elijah's steady presence, the freedom she'd found in this harsh land. No. Coming here was the best choice I ever made. Something shifted in Elijah's expression. He took a step closer. That man who hurt you, he was a fool. Abigail's breath caught. They stood very close now. Close enough she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, smell leather and sage on his skin. Elijah, she whispered. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his calloused hand cupped her cheek. The touch was gentle, reverent. You're stronger than you know, Abigail Sterling. She leaned into his touch, eyes closing. When had someone last touched her with such care? I'm terrified, she admitted. Of Kincaid, of failing, of being alone. You're not alone. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Not anymore. When she opened her eyes, his face was inches from hers. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. Wanted him to. But instead, he stepped back, clearing his throat. We should get some rest. Tomorrow we start repairs. Abigail nodded, trying to steady her racing heart. Elijah made a bedroll on the floor by the fireplace, insisted she take the bedroom. As she lay in her uncle's bed, listening to Elijah move around the main room, she felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Safety. Connection. Maybe even the beginning of love. The next days passed in hard work and growing closeness. Elijah proved as capable with hammer and nails as he was with a rifle. Together, they patched the barn roof, replaced rotted fence posts, cleared the garden plot. Abigail cooked meals over the fireplace, learning to make biscuits that didn't burn, coffee that didn't taste like mud. They fell into an easy rhythm. Mornings, they worked side by side, sweat and sawdust, mixing with laughter. Elijah told stories about his homestead, about learning to farm after years of soldiering. Abigail shared memories of Boston, of her suffocating life there. Evenings, they sat by the fire, exhausted but content. Sometimes they talked late into the night. Other times, comfortable silence filled the space between them. Abigail found herself watching Elijah when he didn't notice. The way he moved, all controlled strength. How he listened when she spoke, really listened. The small kindnesses, like making sure she had the warmest blanket, saving her the best piece of bacon. He was nothing like the men she'd known back east. No pretense, no games, just honest, steady presence. One afternoon, while Elijah mended fence, Abigail brought him water. He drank gratefully, then turned to her with a slight smile. You're getting good at this. Ranch life suits you. I'm learning. She sat on a flat rock nearby, watching him work. Thank you for everything. I couldn't do this alone. You could, but you don't have to. He drove another post into the ground. That's what matters. Abigail studied him. Don't you have work at your own place? I'm keeping you from it. My place can wait. This is more important. Why? These here Nord are supposed to between here Rakedout space. Så last around her. The meant to mean strust to wind to rid run stream. This place where lost Lyle's white, and then tired. Cone straining attention tighter. But also minded then, all the climb and to responds the twice. Elijah stopped, leaned on the post. His blue eyes found hers. Because you matter. This matters. And I'm not leaving you to face Kincaid alone. Her heart fluttered. Elijah. A gunshot cracked the air. Elijah moved instantly, pulling Abigail down behind the rock. Another shot. Closer. Splinters exploded from the fence post. Stay low, Elijah ordered. He had his revolver out, scanning the hillside. 3 o'clock. Behind those trees. Abigail's heart hammered. She'd known Kincaid would come back. But the reality of bullets flying was different than imagining it. More shots. Elijah returned fire, calm and controlled. He'd done this before, she realized. Many times. Get to the house, he said. Rifles above the mantel. Load it. I'm not leaving you. Abigail, go! She ran, keeping low. Bullets kicked up dirt around her feet. She reached the house, grabbed the rifle, loaded it with shaking hands. From the window, she could see Elijah behind the rock, 3 men advancing from the tree line. Kincaid's hired guns. Abigail aimed the rifle, tried to steady her breathing. Her father had taught her to shoot as a girl, but targets were different than men. Still, Elijah needed help. She fired. The shot went wide, but the men scattered, seeking cover. It bought Elijah time. He sprinted to a different position, fired again. 1 man went down, clutching his leg. The remaining 2 retreated, dragging their companion. Within minutes, they were gone, riding hard toward town. Elijah ran to the house. Are you hurt? No. You? I'm fine. He checked the rifle, reloaded it. That was a warning. They'll come back with more men. Abigail's hands shook. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her cold. I should leave. You'll get killed because of me. I'm not running. And neither are you. Elijah set the rifle down, turned to face her fully. Abigail, listen to me. We can do this. Together, we can hold this land. But you have to trust me. I do trust you. That's what scares me. She looked at him, tears threatening. If something happened to you, nothing will happen. You don't know that. He stepped closer, his hands coming up to frame her face. I've survived a war. Survived things that should have killed me. I'm not dying now. Not when I've finally found something worth protecting. His meaning hung between them. Abigail's breath caught. Elijah. He kissed her. Not gentle, not asking. A claiming, a promise. His lips were warm, firm, tasting of dust and desperation. Abigail melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Elijah pressed his forehead to hers. I care about you, he said roughly. More than I should after such short time. But I do. And I'll be damned if I let Kincaid take you from me. Abigail's heart soared. I care about you too. So much it terrifies me. Good. He smiled slightly. Terror means it matters. They stood holding each other as the sun set, two people finding strength in connection. Outside, danger lurked. But inside, love began to take root. That night, neither slept well. Elijah kept watch, rifle across his lap. Abigail dozed fitfully in the bedroom, every sound jerking her awake. By dawn, they were both exhausted. "We need a better plan," Elijah said over coffee. "Defending this place long-term requires more than just us." "What do you suggest?" "We hire help. Men willing to stand up to Kincaid." "I can't afford that." Elijah shook his head. "There are good men in this territory. Men who are tired of Kincaid's bullying. We find them, offer them work and a percentage of the ranch profits. Build a crew." It was risky. But Abigail saw the wisdom. "Who do we approach?" "I know a few. Veterans, mostly. Men I served with who came west after the war. They're struggling, same as everyone. They'd welcome honest work." Hope flickered. "Then let's try." They rode to Guthrie that afternoon. Elijah led her to a rough saloon on the edge of town, the kind of place where desperate men drank away their troubles. Inside, 3 men sat at a corner table, playing cards. Elijah approached. "Jake, Ben, Moses." The men looked up, recognition dawning. "Chambers? That you?" "It's me." Elijah gestured to Abigail. "This is Abigail Sterling. She owns the old Sterling Ranch. We need help defending it from Elias Kincaid." The men exchanged glances. Jake, a lean man with a scare across his cheek, spoke first. "Kincaid's dangerous. Why should we risk our necks?" "Because he's taking land that doesn't belong to him. Because someone needs to stand up to him." Elijah leaned on the table. "And because Miss Sterling's offering fair wages plus a share of ranch profits. Honest work, honest pay." Ben, broad-shouldered with graying hair, studied Abigail. "You serious about fighting for that land, man?" "Completely serious. My uncle built that ranch with his own hands. I won't let Kincaid steal it." Moses, the youngest of the 3, grinned. "I like her spirit. What's the job?" "Repairs, fence building, general ranch work. But also defense if Kincaid's men come back." "They will," Jake said flatly. "Kincaid doesn't give up." "I know." Elijah's voice was steady. "That's why we need men who won't run when things get hard." The 3 men conferred quietly. Finally, Jake nodded. "We're in. But we want it in writing. Contract. Signed legal." "Done." Abigail extended her hand. "Thank you." They shook on it, one by one. Relief flooded through Abigail. They weren't alone anymore. Over the next week, the ranch transformed. With 5 people working, repairs moved quickly. The barn roof was finished, fences rebuilt, the well cleaned and functioning. Jake proved skilled with horses, Ben with carpentry, Moses with anything mechanical. Evenings, the men camped near the barn, giving Abigail and Elijah privacy in the house. But the presence of others changed the dynamic. Elijah was more reserved, careful not to touch her when others might see. Abigail missed his closeness, missed the easy intimacy they'd shared when it was just the 2 of them. One night, after the others had retired, she found Elijah sitting on the porch steps, staring at the stars. She sat beside him, their shoulders touching. "You've been distant." she said quietly. Have I? He didn't look at her. Elijah, what's wrong? He was silent for a long moment. Then, I'm trying to do right by you. Keep things proper. Proper? You're an unmarried woman. I'm staying in your house. People will talk. Abigail laughed softly. Let them talk. I don't care. I care. He turned to her finally. I care what people say about you. Your reputation matters. More than this? She reached for his hand, laced their fingers together. More than what we're building? Elijah looked at their joined hands. I want to do right by you, Abigail. Court you proper. Not just... He struggled for words. You deserve better than a man who takes without asking. Her heart swelled. You've never taken anything. You've only given. She squeezed his hand. And you're right. We should be proper. But Elijah, you need to know. I want a future with you. When this is over, when Kincaid is dealt with, I want you to stay. Not as hired help, as my partner. In everything. His breath caught. Abigail. I love you. The words tumbled out, simple and true. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I do. I love you. Elijah pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. I love you too. God help me. I've loved you since that first night when you stood up to Kincaid's men. You're the strongest, bravest woman I've ever met. She tilted her face up. He kissed her, slow and deep, pouring everything into it. Promise, passion, commitment. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling. So we court proper, Abigail said. But with the understanding that this ends in marriage? If you'll have me. A broken-down soldier with more scars than sense. I'll have you. Scars and all. They sat together under the stars, making quiet plans for a future that felt suddenly possible. But peace was short-lived. 3 days later, a wagon rolled up to the ranch. Elias Kincaid himself stepped down, flanked by 2 armed men. Elijah met him in the yard, rifle in hand. Jake, Ben, and Moses positioned themselves strategically. Abigail watched from the porch, her own rifle ready. Kincaid was a heavy man in expensive clothes, his face flushed from the ride. He looked around the ranch with cold calculation. Making improvements, I see. Shame to waste all that work. State your business, Kincaid, Elijah said flatly. My business is with Miss Sterling. Kincaid's eyes found Abigail. I'm here to make a final offer. $10,000 for the land and buildings. More than fair. Not interested, Abigail called back. Don't be foolish, girl. You can't hold this place. I have resources, lawyers, men. You have what? A handful of drifters? Kincaid smiled coldly. Take the money. Leave while you still can. The answer is no. Kincaid's expression hardened. Then you'll lose everything. I'll tie you up in courts for years, bleed you dry with legal fees. And when you're broke and desperate, I'll still get this land. But for much less. Elijah stepped forward. You heard the lady. Now get off her property. Or what, Chambers? You'll shoot me? There are witnesses. Kincaid gestured to his men. You'd hang. Maybe. But you'd still be dead. Elijah's voice was ice. Your choice. For a moment, tension crackled. Then Kincaid laughed, a harsh sound. You're all fools, but fine. Do this the hard way. He climbed back into the wagon. Just remember, I gave you a chance. They watched him leave, dust rising from the wagon wheels. That was a mistake, Jake said quietly. He'll come at us harder now. I know, Elijah glanced at Abigail. But we don't have a choice. We stand our ground. That night, they doubled the watch. Everyone slept in shifts, weapons close. The tension was suffocating. Abigail couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Kincaid's words, about the danger she'd brought to these men. They could die because of her stubbornness. She found Elijah on watch near the barn. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much thinking. She leaned against the fence beside him. Maybe I should take Kincaid's offer. End this before someone gets killed. No. Elijah. No. He turned to face her. We've been through this. You run now, Kincaid wins. And he'll do it again to someone else. This is about more than just land. It's about standing up to bullies. But if you die, I won't. He cupped her face. I survived the war. I'll survive this. Trust me. She wanted to. But fear gnawed at her. Promise me. Promise you'll be careful. I promise. He kissed her forehead. Now go rest. Tomorrow we ride to town, file more complaints. We'll use the law as much as we can. Reluctantly, Abigail returned to the house. But sleep remained elusive. Dawn came gray and cold. They saddled horses, prepared to ride to Guthrie. Elijah, Abigail, and Jake would go. Ben and Moses would guard the ranch. They were mounting up when riders appeared on the horizon. Not Kincaid's men. The marshal and 2 deputies. Marshal Wade looked grim. Miss Sterling, Mr. Chambers. Need to speak with you. They dismounted. Abigail's stomach churned. What's wrong? Got a complaint filed against you. Says you're harboring stolen livestock, trespassing on Kincaid property. Wade shook his head. I know it's nonsense, but I have to investigate. That's ridiculous, Abigail protested. Every animal here belonged to my uncle. Can you prove it? Bills of sale? Brands registered? Abigail's heart sank. Her uncle's records were scattered. Incomplete. Some of them, not all. Then we have a problem. Wade looked uncomfortable. Kincaid's lawyers are good. They'll twist this into theft charges if they can. Elijah stepped forward. This is harassment. You know it. We know it. Doesn't matter what I know. Matters what I can prove. Wade sighed. Look, I'm on your side. But my hands are tied. Kincaid has half the territorial judge in his pocket. Unless you have ironclad proof of ownership, he'll win in court. Despair washed over Abigail. Kincaid was too powerful, too connected. How could they fight him? There has to be something, Elijah said. Some way to prove the livestock are rightfully hers. Wade thought for a moment. Your uncle kept records, didn't he? Ledgers? Correspondence? Yes, but they're incomplete. He was sick for months. Things fell apart. What about the lawyer who handled the estate? He'd have copies of the will, the deed transfers. Hope flickered. Mr. Patterson in Boston. He sent me the telegram about my uncle's death. Wire him. Get him to send certified copies of everything. Bills of sale, brand registrations, anything that proves continuous ownership. Wade looked at Abigail seriously. And do it fast. Kincaid's moving quick on this. They rode to town immediately. At the telegraph office, Abigail composed a desperate message to Mr. Patterson, explaining the situation. The operator promised to send it priority. How long until we hear back? Abigail asked. If he responds same day, maybe 3 days for the documents to arrive by post. 3 days. An eternity when Kincaid was circling. They returned to the ranch to wait. The tension was unbearable. Every sound made Abigail jump. Every rider on the horizon sent her heart racing. Elijah stayed close, his presence a comfort. At night, they sat together by the fire, talking quietly about anything but Kincaid. He told her about his childhood in Ohio, about the farm his parents worked. She told him about Boston, about the life she left behind. Do you miss it? Elijah asked. The city? The comforts? Sometimes. I miss my mother, though she sided with my father when I left. Abigail stared into the flames. But I don't miss the suffocation, the constant judgment. Here, I can breathe. Even with all this trouble? Even with that? She looked at him. Because I have you, that makes everything bearable. Elijah pulled her close. They sat in comfortable silence, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, they created warmth. On the second day of waiting, a rider approached fast. Not Kincaid's men. A young boy from town.
Telegram for Miss Sterling!
Abigail tore it open, hands shaking. It was from Patterson. Documents being sent express. Should arrive tomorrow morning. Relief flooded through her. They had a chance. But that night, fire erupted in the barn. Abigail woke to shouting. Smoke filled the air, orange flames licking at the night sky. She ran outside in her nightdress, horror seizing her. The barn was fully engulfed. Inside, the horses screamed in terror. Elijah and the men were already fighting the blaze, hauling water from the well. But it was too late for the barn. The priority was the horses. Jake ran into the inferno, covering his face with a wet cloth. He emerged leading 2 panicked horses. Ben followed, got 2 more. Moses grabbed the last one. They'd saved the animals, but the barn was lost. By dawn, only charred ruins remained. Abigail stood in the ashes, tears streaming down her face. Kincaid did this. No proof, Elijah said grimly. He's too smart for that. He's destroying everything. Despair crushed her. The barn, the fences yesterday. He's wearing us down. Elijah turned her to face him. Listen to me. Wood can be replaced. Buildings can be rebuilt. What matters is, we're all alive. The horses are safe. And tomorrow, those documents arrive. We'll have proof, legal standing. Kincaid can burn every building on this property, but he can't burn the law. Abigail wanted to believe him, but exhaustion and fear made it hard. The men spent the day clearing debris, salvaging what they could. Abigail cooked a large meal, needing something productive to do. Her hands shook as she worked. rage and grief warring inside her. That evening, Elijah found her alone behind the house, staring at the horizon. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her head. "I know you're scared," he said quietly. "So am I. But we're going to win this. I promise you, we're going to win." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "How can you be so sure?" "Because we have something Kincaid doesn't. We have people who care, who fight for what's right, not just for money. That matters more than you think." Abigail pressed her face against his chest, letting his steady heartbeat calm her. "I love you so much." "I love you too." He kissed the top of her head. "Tomorrow changes everything. Just hold on one more day." That night, they all slept in the house, weapons close. No one spoke much. They were all thinking the same thing. Tomorrow would decide everything. Morning came slowly. Abigail dressed carefully, braided her hair neatly. If they were going to face Kincaid in court, she'd do it with dignity. The stagecoach arrived mid-morning. Abigail met it in town, Elijah beside her. The driver handed over a thick envelope, sealed with Patterson's stamp. Inside were copies of everything. Her uncle's will, the deed with full chain of ownership going back 40 years, bills of sale for every animal, registered brands, even correspondence proving continuous operation of the ranch. It was ironclad, legal, indisputable. "We have him," Abigail whispered. They went straight to Marshal Wade's office. He reviewed the documents carefully, nodding. "This is solid. Real solid. Kincaid can't challenge this. So what happens now?" "I file these with the Territorial Land Office. They'll issue a formal declaration of ownership. Once that's done, any interference from Kincaid becomes criminal harassment." Wade looked pleased. "You did it, Miss Sterling. The land is legally, undisputedly yours." Relief hit like a wave. Abigail swayed. Elijah steadied her, his hand on her back. "How long?" Elijah asked. "Paperwork takes a week, maybe 2. But I can issue an order of protection immediately. Kincaid or his men come near your property, they'll be arrested." It was over. They'd won. Walking out of the marshal's office, Abigail felt lighter than she had in weeks. Elijah took her hand, squeezed gently. "Told you we'd win," he said with a small smile. "You did." She laughed, giddy with relief. "I can't believe it's really over." But as they reached their horses, Kincaid stepped out of the saloon across the street. His face was purple with rage. "Think you're clever?" he shouted. "Think some papers change anything?" "They change everything," Abigail called back. "The land is mine. Legally. Leave me alone, or the marshal will arrest you." Kincaid's eyes were cold with hate. "You'll regret this. Both of you." "Is that a threat?" Elijah stepped forward, his hand near his holster. "It's a promise." Kincaid turned and stalked away, his men following. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Abigail should have felt triumphant, but Kincaid's words haunted her. Men like him didn't give up just because the law said so. Elijah seemed to sense her thoughts. He's beaten. He just doesn't know it yet. He threatened us. Empty threats. What can he do now? The law's on your side. Abigail wanted to believe it, but unease lingered. That night, they celebrated. Jake produced a bottle of whiskey he'd been saving. They toasted to victory, to the ranch, to new beginnings. The mood was light, hopeful. Abigail found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in weeks. Elijah caught her eye across the fire, his expression warm. Later, when the men retired, he pulled her aside. "Walk with me?" They strolled to the ridge overlooking the valley. The moon was full, painting everything silver. Below, the ranch spread out, battered but standing. "We'll rebuild the barn," Elijah said. "Make it bigger, better." Jake knows a sawmill owner who owes him a favor. "We can get lumber cheap." "We?" Abigail looked at him. "You're staying?" "If you'll have me, not just for defense now, for good." He turned to face her fully. "Abigail, I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but I've never been more sure of anything. I want to build a life with you. Here, on this land, as your husband, if you'll say yes." Tears filled her eyes. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." He kissed her then, deep and claiming. His hands tangled in her hair, pulled her close. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "We'll do it right," Elijah said. "Talk to the preacher, have a proper ceremony, invite the whole town. I don't need all that. I just need you. You'll have me. Forever." They stood together under the moon, two people who'd found home in each other. But happiness was fleeting. 2 days later, Kincaid struck again. Jake rode in from town, his face grim. "Kincaid's filed a lawsuit. Claims your uncle owed him money, that the ranch should be sold to settle the debt." Abigail's stomach dropped. "That's a lie. My uncle never borrowed from Kincaid. Doesn't matter if it's true. He's got a promissory note, signed and witnessed. Says your uncle borrowed $5,000 3 years ago, never repaid it. It's forged. It has to be." Jake nodded. "Probably. But proving it will take time, and money for lawyers." The hope that had bloomed so briefly withered. Kincaid was relentless. Elijah paced the main room, fury radiating from him. He's not going to stop. Ever. We win legally, he invents new lies. Burns our buildings, files false claims. This will never end. What choice do we have? Abigail sank into a chair, exhaustion crushing her. We can't fight him forever. Maybe we don't fight him. Maybe we fight his lies. Elijah stopped pacing. That promissory note. Who witnessed it? Jake checked the papers. Says here 2 men, Frank Miller and Joseph Grant. I know those names, Elijah said slowly. They work for Kincaid. Have for years. They'd sign anything he told them to. So we prove they're lying. How? It's their word against ours. Elijah thought hard. We find someone who knows the truth. Someone who can testify that your uncle never borrowed money from Kincaid. Who would know that? The banker. Your uncle did business in town, right? Had accounts? Made deposits? Hope flickered. Yes, at the Territory Bank. Then we go there. Get his bank records. If he never withdrew $5,000, never made payments on a loan, The records will prove the note is fake. It was risky, but it was something. They rode to town the next morning. The Territory Bank was a solid brick building, the only one in Guthrie that looked permanent. Inside, a thin man with spectacles greeted them nervously. "How can I help you?" "We need to see the bank records for Samuel Sterling," Abigail said. "I'm his niece and heir." The banker paled. Those records are confidential. I have a legal right to see my uncle's accounts." "Yes, but..." The banker glanced toward the back office. "Mr. Kincaid has instructed us not to release any information without his approval." Elijah's jaw tightened. "Kincaid doesn't own this bank. He owns the mortgage on it, and several other businesses in town. If I cross him..." The banker's voice dropped to a whisper. "Please, I have a family. I can't risk it." Abigail felt sick. Kincaid's reach was everywhere. They left the bank empty-handed. On the street, Abigail fought tears of frustration. He controls everything. The bank, the businesses, probably half the people in this town. How do we fight that? We find someone he doesn't control. Elijah's eyes were hard, and we make them talk. That night, Elijah rode out alone. He didn't tell Abigail where he was going, just said he'd be back by morning. She wanted to argue, to demand he stay, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He returned at dawn, satisfaction on his face. Behind him rode an older man, weathered and nervous. "This is Henry Walsh," Elijah said. "He used to work for Kincaid, until Kincaid cheated him out of his wages." Henry dismounted stiffly. "Miss Sterling, I heard about your trouble. Can you help us?" "Maybe. I was Kincaid's bookkeeper for 5 years. Kept all his records, witnessed all his deals." Henry's expression was bitter. "Including that fake promissory note he's using against you." Abigail's heart leaped. "You know it's forged?" "I know Samuel Sterling never borrowed a dime from Kincaid. Your uncle was proud, stubborn. He'd rather starve than owe Kincaid anything." Henry pulled papers from his saddlebag. "I kept copies of everything. Figured someday I'd need insurance against Kincaid's lies." The papers showed the truth. No loan to Samuel Sterling. But there was more. Evidence of other fraudulent loans, forged deeds, stolen land. Kincaid's empire was built on lies and theft. "This is enough to destroy him," Abigail breathed. "If you can get it to the territorial governor," Henry said. "The local law is too scared of Kincaid. But the governor's office in Oklahoma City, they have authority over him." Elijah nodded. "Then that's where we go." It was a 3-day ride to Oklahoma City. Dangerous, with Kincaid's men watching. But it was their only chance. They left that afternoon. Elijah, Abigail, and Henry, with Jake, Ben, and Moses staying to guard the ranch. They rode hard, stopping only when darkness made travel impossible. Around the campfire that first night, Henry told them everything. How Kincaid had started small, buying failing businesses cheap. How he'd expanded through intimidation and fraud. How he'd ruined dozens of families, stolen their land, destroyed their lives. "Why didn't anyone stop him?" Abigail asked. "Fear. Money. Power." Henry stared into the flames. "Kincaid makes examples of people who cross him. ruins them completely. After a while, everyone just learns to look the other way. But you didn't. I did. For years. Henry's voice was heavy with shame. Until he turned on me. Then I realized if I didn't fight back, I'd have nothing left. Not even my self-respect. Elijah was quiet, watchful. Abigail saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand stayed near his holster. He was expecting trouble. It came on the second day. They were crossing open prairie when riders appeared. 6 men, heavily armed. Not Kincaid's usual hired guns. These looked harder, more professional. Mercenaries, Elijah muttered. Kincaid brought in real killers. They spurred their horses, racing for a stand of trees ahead. Bullets kicked up dirt around them. Abigail leaned low over her mare's neck, praying. They reached the trees. Elijah yanked them off their horses, positioned them behind thick trunks. Stay down. Let them come to us. The mercenaries spread out, surrounding the grove. One called out, "Hand over the documents," and the old man, "You can ride away free." "Not happening," Elijah shouted back. "Then you'll die here." Elijah checked his ammunition. He had maybe 20 rounds. Not enough for 6 men. "Henry, you know how to shoot?" "Not well. You'll learn today." Elijah handed him a spare revolver. He looked at Abigail. "Stay behind me, no matter what." "Elijah." "No matter what." The mercenaries advanced. Elijah fired first, dropping 1 man. The others scattered, returned fire. Bark exploded from the trees. Abigail pressed herself flat, terror threatening to overwhelm her. Elijah moved like he'd never left the battlefield. Calm, controlled, deadly. He fired, moved, fired again. Another mercenary went down. But there were still 4, and they were spreading out, trying to flank them. Henry fired wildly, missed. 1 mercenary got close, too close. Elijah spun, put 2 rounds in the man's chest. He dropped. 3 left. Then a rifle cracked from outside the grove. One of the mercenaries fell. Another shot. Another man down. Jake, Ben, and Moses rode in hard, rifles blazing. They'd followed, staying back as insurance. The remaining mercenaries broke, retreating fast. Within minutes, they were gone. Jake dismounted, grinning. "Figured you might need backup." Elijah clasped his shoulder. "Good timing." They rode on together, 6 strong now. By evening of the 3rd day, they reached Oklahoma City. The territorial governor's mansion was an imposing structure. They cleaned up as best they could, then requested an audience. The secretary made them wait for hours. Finally, they were ushered into an office. Governor Barnes was a gray-haired man with sharp eyes. He listened to their story without interruption, examined Henry's documents carefully. When they finished, he sat back. "This is damning. If it's authentic." "It's authentic," Henry said firmly. "I kept those records myself." Elias Kincaid is a powerful man, influential. He has friends in the territorial legislature. Abigail's heart sank. Not again. Not more corruption. But Governor Barnes smiled slightly. "However, I am not one of his friends. And I've been looking for cause to investigate his activities for some time." He stood. I'll order a full audit of his business dealings. If what you've shown me is accurate, Mr. Kincaid will face criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and land theft. Relief crashed over Abigail. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank me by testifying when the time comes. All of you. Barnes looked at each of them. This won't be easy. Kincaid will fight. But with your testimony and these documents, we can bring him to justice. They left the mansion in a daze. Outside, Elijah pulled Abigail close. It's really over. This time, it's really over. She buried her face in his chest, tears finally flowing. All the fear, the exhaustion, the desperation came pouring out. Elijah held her, murmuring soft words, his hand stroking her hair. When she finally pulled back, Jake was watching them with a knowing smile. So, when's the wedding? Abigail laughed through her tears. Soon. Very soon. They rode home slowly, taking time to rest properly. The constant fear was gone. For the first time since arriving in Oklahoma, Abigail felt free. At night, around the campfire, Elijah talked about plans. Rebuilding the barn, expanding the herd, maybe planting wheat in the south pasture. Abigail listened, contributing ideas, imagining the future they'd build together. I want children, she said quietly one night. 2, maybe 3. Elijah smiled. I'd like that. A family. Something to build instead of destroy. You've built plenty. This ranch, our life together. Our life. He tested the words, seemed to like them. I never thought I'd have this. Peace. Love. A future worth living for. You deserve it. You deserve all of it. He kissed her gently. So do you. They reached the ranch on a bright morning. The place looked rough, the burned barn a stark reminder of the battle they'd fought. But it was theirs. Truly, finally theirs. Jake, Ben, and Moses had kept everything running smoothly. The horses were healthy, fences mended, the garden plot cleared for spring planting. Welcome home, Ben said with a rare smile. Home. The word settled in Abigail's chest, warm and right. That afternoon, a rider came from town. Marshal Wade, with news. Governor Barnes had ordered Kincaid's arrest. The audit revealed extensive fraud. Kincaid would face trial, likely prison. His empire was crumbling. It's done, Wade said. He can't hurt you anymore. After he left, Abigail stood in the yard, looking at the land that had cost so much to keep. Every inch of it was worth the fight. Elijah came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. What are you thinking? That I'm home. Really home. She turned in his arms. And that, I want to marry you. Soon as we can arrange it. Tomorrow? She let it ignore to the supposed between he rake.z for self-times and luck around her. Like 2 months Gus, and then Tories were another who said. Their rest place where lost to Laos white, and then the towel was entired. Telling that Granding I didn't to shout at that plane. But out so har, I called it coin, and there were spoons the Tories the stocking for their mouth. She laughed. Maybe give people a little more notice than that. Next week, then. The preacher can come here. We'll have a simple ceremony. Perfect. She kissed him softly. I don't need anything fancy. Just you, me, and the people we care about. The next days were a flurry of preparation. Abigail cleaned the house thoroughly, baked bread and pies, prepared a feast. Jake rode to town to invite the preacher and spread the word. Ben and Moses built a simple arch outside, decorating it with late-season wildflowers. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright. Abigail dressed in a simple cream-colored dress she'd brought from Boston, the only nice thing she owned. She braided her auburn hair with wildflowers woven through it. Looking at herself in the small mirror, she barely recognized the frightened woman who'd arrived weeks ago. That woman had been running, broken, afraid. The woman looking back now was strong, determined, loved. Outside, neighbors had gathered. More people than Abigail expected. Families who'd heard about her fight with Kincaid, who respected her refusal to back down. They brought food, gifts, well wishes. Elijah stood under the arch, cleaned up and handsome in his best clothes. When he saw Abigail walking toward him, his face transformed. Pure love shone in his eyes. The preacher was a kind man with a weathered face. He kept the ceremony simple, speaking of love, commitment, partnership. When he asked them to speak their vows, Elijah went first. Abigail, I was a broken man when you came into my life. I thought I'd spend my days alone, trying to atone for things I couldn't change. But you showed me that redemption isn't about the past. It's about choosing who you want to be now. His voice was rough with emotion. I choose to be your husband, your partner, the man who stands beside you through every storm. I love you, and I promise to love you every day for the rest of my life. Tears streamed down Abigail's face. Elijah, you gave me shelter when I had nowhere to go. You gave me strength when I thought I had none left. You taught me that being strong doesn't mean being alone. She took his hands. I choose you. I choose this life we're building. I promise to stand with you, fight beside you, love you with everything I am. Today and always. The preacher pronounced them husband and wife. Elijah cupped Abigail's face, kissed her deeply. Around them, people cheered. The celebration lasted into the evening. People ate, danced, shared stories. Jake produced his fiddle, played lively tunes. Children ran through the yard, laughing. As the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink, Elijah pulled Abigail aside. They walked to their favorite spot on the ridge, looking down at the ranch. Mrs. Chambers, he said, testing out her new name. I like the sound of that. She leaned against him. Though I'll keep using Sterling for the ranch papers. My uncle's name should stay with this place. That's right. And fitting. Elijah turned her to face him. Are you happy? Happier than I ever imagined possible. She touched his face. You saved me, Elijah. In every way a person can be saved. You saved me too. Gave me a reason to be more than just a survivor. They kissed as the sun dipped below the horizon. When they walked back to the house, hand in hand, the last guests were leaving. Jake, Ben, and Moses had cleaned up, were preparing to head to their camp by the barn. We'll give you newlyweds some privacy, Jake said with a wink. Alone finally, Elijah lit the lamps. Abigail felt suddenly shy, nervous. They'd been so careful before, keeping proper distance. But now, they were married. Now there were no barriers between them. Elijah seemed to sense her nerves. He came to her slowly, took her hands. We have all the time in the world. No rush, no expectations. Just us. She relaxed. I love you. I love you too. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, gentle and patient. He carried her across the threshold of their bedroom, kicked the door closed behind them. The morning sun streamed through the window, painting golden stripes across the bed. Abigail woke wrapped in Elijah's arms, his chest rising and falling beneath her cheek. She'd never known such peace, such complete contentment. When he stirred, pulling her closer and murmuring her name, she smiled. This was home. Not the land, not the buildings. This man, this love, this life they were creating together. They spent the morning in comfortable domesticity. Elijah made coffee while Abigail prepared breakfast. They ate together at the table he'd built, talking about the day's work ahead. We should start on the new barn next week, Elijah said. Jake lined up the lumber delivery, and I want to expand the garden, plant more vegetables for winter storage. Good idea. We'll need. Elijah stopped. Through the window, a rider approached, not threatening, just a single man on a tired horse. They went outside together. The rider was young, barely 20, with a badge pinned to his chest. Deputy from Oklahoma City. Mr. and Mrs. Chambers? He asked. That's us, Elijah said cautiously. Governor Barnes sent me. Wanted you to know Elias Kincaid was convicted yesterday. 20 years in territorial prison for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. His assets are being seized to repay his victims. Abigail felt tears prick her eyes. Justice. Real justice. Thank you, she managed. Thank you for letting us know. After the deputy left, Abigail turned to Elijah. It's really over. He can't hurt anyone else. No, he can't. Elijah pulled her close. You did that. You stood up to him when no one else would. You saved this land and probably a dozen other families he would have destroyed. We did it. Together. Together, he agreed. They stood holding each other in the morning sun, the ranch stretching out around them. There was work ahead, building to do, challenges to face. But they'd face everything side by side. Over the next weeks, life settled into a rhythm. They worked from dawn to dusk, rebuilding, improving, growing. The new barn rose slowly, bigger and sturdier than the old one. The garden flourished under Abigail's care. The herd grew as they bought young cattle cheap from struggling ranchers. Jake, Ben, and Moses became more than hired hands. They became family. They ate meals together, shared stories around the fire, helped each other through hard days. One evening, about a month after the wedding, Abigail realized she was happy. Truly, deeply happy. The kind of happiness that came from building something real, something lasting. She found Elijah by the new barn, admiring their work. It's beautiful, she said, coming to stand beside him. It is. Solid. Built to last. He looked at her. Like us. She took his hand. I never thanked you properly. For everything you've done. For choosing to help a stranger in a storm. Best choice I ever made. He pulled her close. You're my home, Abigail. Wherever you are, that's where I belong. And you're mine. She kissed him softly. My shelter, my strength, my love. They walked back to the house as stars began to appear. Inside, Abigail lit the lamps while Elijah stoked the fire. These simple routines felt sacred, precious. The ordinary moments that made up a life. Later, sitting together by the fire, Elijah said quietly, I never told you about the worst day of the war. Abigail waited, knowing he needed to share this. We burned a farm. Family was still inside. His voice was hollow. I heard them screaming, wanted to stop it. But orders were orders. So I stood there and did nothing. Abigail took his hand. That must haunt you. Every day. Every single day. He looked at her. But you've given me a way to live with it. By building instead of destroying. By protecting instead of hurting. You've given me redemption I don't deserve. You deserve it. You've earned it. She cupped his face. The man you were then doesn't define the man you are now. That's what I've learned from you. We're not prisoners of our past. We get to choose who we become. He pulled her onto his lap, held her tight. I love you so much. I love you too. They sat in comfortable silence, the fire crackling, the night peaceful around them. Outside, the wind whispered through the prairie grass. Inside, two hearts beat as one. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Abigail woke early, slipped out of bed without waking Elijah. She stood on the porch, watching the sun rise over their land. The ranch looked beautiful in the morning light. The new barn stood proud and strong. The fences stretched straight and true. The garden showed the first green shoots of autumn planting. Everything they'd fought for. Everything they'd built together. Elijah came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? How far we've come. That first night when I crashed through your door, terrified and alone. I never imagined it would lead to this. To us. To us, she agreed. She turned in his arms. I'm so grateful. For every moment. Even the hard ones. Because they brought us here. He kissed her forehead. We have a good life ahead of us. A real future. The best future. She smiled up at him. Together. They stood watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Below them, the ranch waited for another day of work, of growth, of life being lived fully. Abigail thought about the woman she'd been just weeks ago. Scared, running, convinced she had to face everything alone. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, braver, loved. Thank you, she whispered to Elijah, for giving me shelter from the storm. You gave me shelter too, he said quietly. From the storm inside me. They kissed as the sun climbed higher. Two souls who'd found each other in the darkness and created light together. The ranch spread out before them, solid and real. Their home, their future, their hard-won happiness. And as they walked back inside hand in hand, ready to face whatever the day would bring, Abigail knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. With him. Always with him.